Greetings! In this video I'm going to show you how you would go about creating something entirely from scratch using our templates. So we've included this example level, which contains a bunch of little actors that do things when you play things from this Ableton track. And that's awesome, but how would you go about creating something entirely new? So I'm going to show you real quick how to create something in Ableton and then create an actor using our templates in Unreal Engine, which will allow you to hopefully get new ideas and go from there. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new level. Call it My Amazing Level. So here we have a big empty level. I'm just going to add in a sky so we can see something, and a directional light so we can see more stuff. Zero out everything because I'm anal. Now here we are. I'm going to put in a thinking, buffering. Yes. So the first thing you do when you create a new level is add in an OSC router. The OSC router, as stated before, creates a connection between Ableton and Unreal using OSC. It reads data from the Max for Live devices over this port and this IP address. By default, the IP address is set to the local IP address, and the port is set to a default value, which will be the same in Ableton. So if you leave everything as is, it should just receive messages immediately. So I'm going to create a new Ableton file. Well, not entirely new. I'm going to open this project, which I haven't done much to yet. So here's the kick. So how am I going to make stuff from here do stuff in here? Let's see. Well, I've got this nice little template here called All-in-One OSC Controls. And it's got a bunch of little events set to go already, which I can use and then delete the rest. That's kind of how I'd go about this. So first thing I'm going to do is duplicate this actor. Control-C, Control-V, give it a new name, call it My Amazing Dude. Chuck it in here, set it to 0, 0, bring it up a bit. Yeah, it's already got a bunch of references and variables in here. One thing you need to set is the OSC router ref. Each actor has to reference the OSC router, and because the OSC router is already in the level, I can just select it from here. So in this case, I want this guy to do something using the kick. Well, here is a variable called MIDI track address, which tells me which track of MIDI I would like to receive MIDI notes from. So if I go into Ableton now and go up here, I can find the little MIDI sender. If I chuck that in front of my drum rack, it will now serve as a little MIDI sender device. Here you can select the track address, setting that to 1, and the IP I'll leave at 0, and I'll leave the port at 0 as well. At default, sorry, not 0. How do I make a kick drum do something here? Well, let's say I want a little ball to get bigger and smaller when a kick hits. Let's open up My Amazing Dude and see what we've got. We've got here, the bottom two events here are MIDI events. They're both supposed to look at the same actor, but because of the nature of Blueprint, I'm not allowed to use the same event twice. So this one is supposed to be the same as this guy. So for the purposes of this, I'm going to delete all of these, and I'm going to have a look at the OSC parameter here, and here you can see all the events displayed that are linked to, which are called from the OSC router. So let's grab on MIDI note, hit the plus, and there we go. And I'm going to replace this guy with this guy. So you go nya, and you go nya. There we go. That's all you have to do to use this one. The rest are all they all already just good to go. Just because those two use the same event, that's a bit different. It's a bit confusing, sorry, but most people should find their way around that. This event looks at a MIDI track address first, checks whether the MIDI track address corresponds with what you've told it to listen to, and then if that's true, it fires off the event. And what will that event be? Well, in this case, I'm going to call a timeline, because a MIDI event is just a single pulse that says go. And I'm going to play it from the start. Not play, but play from the start. Double click on this, and here you can see a bunch of tracks that you can add. I'm going to add a float track. I'm going to set the length to 1, and here you can draw in the timeline. So I'm going to add, what can I actually choose a curve? No, I'll just make a curve. Add a key, hit that, set it to 0, set it to 0 right at the start. So that's the first key. Second key I'm adding is going to have a value of 1. Let's max this out. There we go. Oop, no, that was a bad idea. There we go. And bring this way back. Yep. There we go. Bring it right. It's kind of like it very quickly curves up. Value to 1. I'm also changing the interpolation to auto. Next up here, I'm going to add another key around about there. I'm going to kind of eyeball it just there, set the value to 0 here. That's one thing with these timelines. It's best to end them at 0. It's good to know, because I've had some weird floating values in the past where something would just sort of be jittering around. That was usually because the timeline was still stuck somewhere. And I'm just going to set this curve to be like this. Cool. So now, whenever the kick fires, I'm going to get a boop, boop, just like that. So just to check whether or not we're actually receiving MIDI notes, let me go into Ableton and just play for a sec. So here's the kick. And we've got the OSC router set here. So if we hit play now, or simulate, yes, there we go. We're receiving notes, note 36. Now, I wanted to use, I could tell Unreal to use a specific note, and so after checking the track address, to also check which note to receive from. But in this case, I just want to tell it, if you receive any MIDI note, so just MIDI notes from the kick track, then fire this message. So that also means that I can just add any number of kicks into this drum rack and use a whole bunch of different kick sounds, and they would all fire the same event. And in this case, that's what I want. So here's a sphere. Let's chuck in a sphere. Nothing special about this sphere. It's just a sphere. We want to make it do stuff. But as I've added it into the actor, we can see it's already appeared in the world. Cool. So how do I make this sphere do something cool to the kick? Well, we have this timeline here now. I'm going to set this update to set scale, set world scale of our sphere. Yes, sir. And we're going to multiply. Well, actually, let's just make a vector and see what that does. So we're going to go a scale from 0 to 1. That's going to be our range. And I'm going to add this track to each direction of the vector so they all scale equally, and add the return value to the new scale input. Hit compile. So now, if everything has gone as it should, and I hit play, and hit play here, yes sir, our little sphere is bouncing up to the kick. So that's cool. That's awesome. So that's basically all you need to know. The rest is up to you. Have fun. Use all these parameters, variables, multiply them, make them fire off weird stuff. trigger a bunch of skeletal meshes and have them bounce into each other. You can do physical stuff, like physics stuff. World's your oyster, really is. So that's the essence of how this works. You grab one of the inputs from our OSC template here and use whichever ones you want. You can use them in combination, of course. You can use an envelope at the end of the same track and use the audio to control something else. You can use a macro that you've attached to a slider to hook up to effects and that kind of stuff. You can affect shaders, particle systems. My point is you can control a whole bunch of stuff and be very precise about it. And that's what's so cool about this.